Hello, hello. Welcome to the second video. I've chosen a slightly different recording spot. It's actually only about 5 feet away from my last video. The main difference of why I wanted this background in particular is because I did see a cat walking through this trail entering the woods here. So I'm just very curious, is this a house cat? Is this somebody's cats over there? So I'm very curious if the cat walks back in and enters the frame. That would be awesome. That would make my dreams come true. However, I don't think that will happen, but I'll keep a lookout. So for this video, the main thing that I wanted to talk about today is why it's so important to wear a mask. And no, obviously I'm not talking about COVID masks, we're past pandemic. I'm just talking about wearing a mask at work. And so kind of the idea of when you're coming to work, you basically have two choices. You could either come as you are, the real human being that's coming into work, or you can choose to play a role. And so basically imagine if I'm at the cat's over there actually. Let me spin this. I don't know if you can see it, but the cat's walking back to the house. Yeah, okay, cool. I don't know how the cat got there, but good for him. He did make it back home, so that's awesome. But what was I saying? So it's just the importance of wearing the mask is more like you're playing a role. And so imagine if you were, filming a movie or something like that, and you're Leonardo DiCaprio. I guess maybe at that point you're quite good. But if you're an inspiring actor, you're kind of getting your way up there. You're trying to get into bigger and bigger movies. If you were to be on set, and you're going through one of your acts, and then afterwards someone pulls you aside and says like, hey, like I think that if you do this and this could be better. And so for a normal human being, if you were to try something, you do your best at it, and afterwards you still get some feedback, it may hurt your feelings a little bit. But if you're an actor, you got to remember, like, they're not speaking to you personally, right? They're speaking to your mask. And so anytime that you get any feedback on your mask, you can just use that information to improve the persona rather than taking it to like, oh, like me personally, I need to be like that and I'm not like that. And so it's essentially the idea that for all these different types of jobs, no one really wanting a human being. Let's be real, right? Like, let's pretend that ChatGPT gets a really big upgrade tomorrow, ChatGPT 5. And with ChatGPT 5, you're able to do all this normal stuff that a normal marketing consultant is able to do. You're able to grab the data, you're able to list the reason why it makes sense, you're able to show about the way the implementation. I believe that if there was a ChatGPT 5 that was able to do that, I would lose my job. And so why is that? Well, the reason being is because in general, or especially when it comes to businesses aren't people. Yes, they're run by people, but businesses are not people. And because businesses are not people, they're not really that interested in people. At the end of the day, it's about input and output, right? So if I put in 100,000 as an investment, do I get 250,000 back? Or do I have to hire someone who is now $70,000, but they can make me, $120,000, so I only get $60,000? You get the idea. Having a human within the place actually slows down the process for businesses. And so the question for you now is, when you go and work at a business, do you want to come in there as your real self, or do you just want to go ahead and play the role and kind of be that cog in the machine? And so I think generally people have a negative view of that terminology, cog in the machine. It just makes you feel like, oh, you're lifeless, you have no personality, yada, 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 yada. But I will mention that is only for work. And so I know, obviously, everyone works every day, and it's a decent amount of hours every single day. But at the same time, like, you can still be yourself, your normal human being, outside of work while wearing a mask at work. And in fact, it's even better. Because, for example, for a person like me, I find myself to be a little bit strange in some ways. And so with that, like, if I'm getting some sort of feedback in terms of like how I'm talking, maybe you should, not speak as fast, blah, 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 blah. And so if I were to take that personally, it's like, oh man, like that guy just doesn't even like the rate of speed that I talk. Like, that guy just hates me. I could think like that. I could hear those type of feedback and take it to my heart. But I also got to recognize the fact that none of these people are right or wrong, right? Like, if I'm working with a client and they're wanting it to be this certain way, it doesn't matter if it's not as effective as the way that I would have done, or it's not really the right way. If that's how they want it done, and that's how you get your monies, that's how it's going to be done. right? And so for me, over the past year, it's kind of that evolution of like, okay, I could come in and show my real self and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, like in reality, all that does is it gets me hurt, right? Like people are just going to critique you all day. That's just how work is. And so having a mask in which you can look at it more like, oh, I am an actor in a film. They're giving me some critique in terms of ways that I can improve. And then in terms of improving, what does improving mean in general? Improving in a business within the company standpoint just means that this is what they're wanting to receive and this is what you provide them. Nothing more, nothing less. They just want something stable in which they're able to provide the input, and then based on your training, you're able to do the output. Simple as that. And with that, you can kind of understand why having personality, having thoughts, having all this type of stuff actually doesn't benefit you that much. In the end, it actually leads you to more issues. For example, with one of the companies I was working with, one of the best managers, scratch that, the best manager I've ever had in my entire life. She was gracious, she was sharp, she was smart. She was always saying the right things, the things that nobody wants to say, but she would say it in front of the huge meetings and she'd say the right thing. And whatever happened to her, they laid her off. The person who did everything right, the person who, had all the context to make the right moves, the person who tried to bring it up in these big calls, they laid her off. And to me, that was just a super important lesson to me in the sense that like these businesses, they don't love you. You're just an input to them. And so if that is the case, if you already know that these folks don't love you like that, they're not respecting you like that, and as soon as they feel like, like you're talking too much, they'll cut you off. Why would you give them your all? Why would you give them everything? You're a beautiful human being with tons of skills, tons of original thought. Why would you give it to them? For what? For what? Because the big question is, think about it, because there's another thing that I kind of recognize when working in industry, is that in terms of the bar, in terms of skill sets, how good people are, generally everybody comes in with a set salary, right? So let's pretend that you negotiate 70, let's say. And then let's say that there's a new hire in and this person gets paid 80, let's say. And if you're the hardworking person at the 70, you're going to look at the 80 who just newly came in and be like, why don't I get that same benefit? Well, because they don't give a fuck about you, right? You signed the 70 last year, you're getting the 70, and of course you may get your 3% raise or something like that, but what is that, like 5,000? So from 70,000 to 75,000, like it's nothing. And that's just kind of my lesson to y'all, what I'm trying to say here is that if you're able to wear a mask and then just play as the guy who's average, you can be a smart guy. I believe that you're a smart guy. If you're listening to this, you're probably a smart guy. And I believe that you have projects that you're working on, skill sets that you're building on. All I am saying is it doesn't all have to benefit the business that you're working on at that time. You have a lot of skill sets, and I just don't believe that the way that these businesses are set up, they don't really allow for individualism or allow for creativity or even allow for the right things to be said at times. And if you already know that this is the type of environment that the majority of industry, corporate businesses are in, then my suggestion to you is don't let it suck your soul, and don't let it suck your soul by never giving it your soul in the first place. Once you recognize the fact that you're just an input and you're just there to get a certain output, it actually frees your mind a little bit. Just because you're no longer worrying of like, oh man, like what if we do bad in Q4? What if? My job is to do this. Whoever's worried about Q4 is the top dude up there, but he's getting paid like $750,000 to worry about it. If you're just an individual contributor, I don't know, maybe you're just an engineer, maybe you're just a sole specialist, maybe you're a data analyst, whatever that is. Like, keep in mind that you're just an individual contributor. You can do as much as you can. But in the end, these results of how these businesses fare shouldn't hurt you that bad, because in the end, you can always find another job, right? But they only have one life, so to speak. So yeah, I don't know. This is just kind of a long rant. The reason I kind of chat about this is just a lot of clients is always kind of come busting in, talking this, talking that, talking this, talking that. And sometimes I just kind of have to like, whew, calm down. At the end, they're basically speaking to my puppet. And they're like, hey, like, blah, 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 let my puppet speak. Boop, 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 boop. And me as the individual, all I have to do is think about how would my puppet respond if someone asked them that in this type of organization. And I just feel like with this new change of perspective, I just don't take things to heart nearly as much. I'm much more relaxed with it. Whatever happens, essentially happens. In the end, I know, and probably for whoever's watching this too, like, we're just here to get some money. Get some money, whether it's for family, whether it's just for living costs, whether it's just for saving up for retirement. We're all here just trying to make a bag. And once you recognize that fact, you can kind of start recognizing that, you know, your job is not the only way for you to make a bag. And of course, it's going to teach you some useful skill sets. But at the end of the day, like, it's not live or die. You can always find another job. You can always find another opportunity. And if you're thinking like, oh, but I haven't seen them, they come when you're needing them, you know? It's like when people already have a job and people reach out to them for like interviews and maybe they don't take it. Take it. Always take the interview, find out what they're offering, find out they can be able to treat you better, see if they can get that pay bump up, and avoid things like unlimited PTO. That shit's a scam. I can talk about that later. But all I'm saying is, it's something like what my mentor had kind of spoken to me about when I was working at this big org. And he essentially just said, like, remember, at the end of the day, we're just making these rich people richer. You got to make sure that you get some of that money for yourself, right? So try not to put your heart into things. Just make sure that, you know, you're doing what's needed to get that type of income for you and your family. And, you know, just keep calm. Don't let these people get into your hearts. They don't deserve it, you know? Like, as a real human being, you know, with real emotions, real things going on, like, everyone is like that. And you can't be letting some random bullshit business decision affect your life, because you're just simply too important for that, honestly. So that's the end of this video. I appreciate y'all for watching. I appreciate those who commented last time. Shout out to y'all for real. And I hope you guys got some value out of this. But other than that, appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks.